Now we pick up where we left off, welcoming everyone here. We pick up where the Minister for Digital Transformation left off, digital governance rather, and we're moving on to digital trajectories, which is one of the key axes for the day after. And the target, which is nothing else than the, productive transition of the Greek economy. Now, the title of our session is The Future of AI in Cloud and Data Centers. It gives us great pleasure and an honor to have with us outstanding members of this innovation ecosystem in the country. Now, from my left, your right, is Mr. Michalis Kassimiotis, Managing Director, Hewlett, Packard, Enterprise, Hellas and Cyprus. Next to him, we have Mr. Minas Koulisiannis, Data and Technology Transformation Leader for IBM. And last but definitely not least, Mr. Frank Zervos, Sales Consulting Director from Oracle Greece. Now, without any further ado, to put the 30 minutes we have at our disposal to good use, I would like to take things from the top. We have AI, the great debate on the data centers, etc. What changes, what is brought in Greek entrepreneurship, and what does this bring in our everyday lives? How much value can we draw from these new data? So we'll start with you, sir. Well, the challenge, after speaking after the minister, is to say something new, something unknown, or something astonishing to keep everyone's interests high. Now, I will not say something that is unheard of, but I do believe it's interesting. I think that we all accept that we live in the era of data, the economy of data, and even those who do not perceive it because they haven't included it in their everyday lives, and I'm talking about the businesses, I believe they accept the challenge and they feel the risk that if they don't do it, something will be left behind, even the very existence of their company, since we're talking about entrepreneurship. When we talk about the state, well, things are slightly different. Like the minister said, first we need to close our past trending issues and tending issues so as to have something that is available, something that is well protected, start drawing the first insights from the first differences, and on the basis of these insights to produce, understand the content in the decision-making process. This, more or less, is the definition of AI. How we can utilize data either to improve the operation of our business, our company, or a state process through which we can improve our productive indicator. What may be less understood is that from the data produced, most of it goes to waste or is assigned because there is production of data everywhere. A commercial activity may have a lot of data, where someone using their smartphone uses an application, or when they're speaking, data is produced. The issue is how can that data be taken into advisement by a company or a business in a way that is both moral and safe and secure, and to use it to improve and enhance the experience, say, of a visit of someone to a museum, or a consumer at a mall, or a spectator at a stadium. This is the big challenge that lies ahead, both for businesses and state structures that are into services offered to the citizens. Now, in a recent survey we performed as a company, we saw that the maturity index of data, that is the digital preparedness index for that data to be introduced in the productive process, is very low. I think it's below 50%. And not for their availability as in terms of reporting, but to be utilized to produce a new service or a new experience. Now, this needs to rise. 50% is very, very low as an indicator. So I believe that in Greece, where the subject of AI has been perceived and understood as a necessity and as a benchmark against which the country needs to measure up, we need to do the fundamentals. And the fundamentals, well, the train has passed, the ship has sailed, etc. I don't know whether my interlocutors will agree with me, so we need to double our pace, redouble it. How can we have those structures, not to say infrastructures, that support AI as an endeavor? How can we make a national strategy that will transcend from theory, because we have theory, into practice? How can we see state and businesses to enter this equation in an equitable manner? That's the question. Right, well, the torch is passed on to you. So our relative velocity, is it sufficient for us to attain those necessary rates to achieve the the goodwill and the value, the surplus value for us to succeed and for the state to take up those measures and steps? Well, we need more speed, we need more velocity. I had the pleasure, ever since I studied at the university, to revolve around this terminology, to be very familiar with it, and around this domain. I worked on AI and data for a great number of years, and the development and evolution could have been faster. Be that as it may, we hit a good stride and a good pace as of late, and we heard the minister say that very significant interventions have been made in the Greek state that have in fact facilitated these things tremendously. At the level of entrepreneurship and business, if one were to look what this novel issue that will be brought upon by AI is, one needs to look at the drivers. What drives entrepreneurship? One could possibly talk about, say, for instance, improving productivity, improving cost. Another very significant thing, and we experienced it during the COVID era, to talk about customer experience and citizen experience when we're talking about citizens and the state. There, great strides forward have been made, but we need more. And I believe that the future, as we've already heard in the public sector from the minister, they need to move in the course of utilizing the data more and to use this added value, because there is a lot of intrinsic value in data, the structured, the unstructured, the inherent, the external data of the businesses, and to put it in the everyday lives of the end users, the citizens, that is, and to improve procedures and processes. Because AI is a turning point, is a key point to produce automations, and at the end of the day, another very important point, another very important issue that is seen by most companies, by most businesses, and needs to be seen and understood by the state is innovation. To build the next steps beyond the next 5 years, we need to build on our future. Right, moving on to Mr. Zervos. Mr. Koulisiannis talked about innovation. We heard yesterday from the panel on the RRF that a key for the day after is in fact innovation. Productivity was raised as an issue by Mr. Vetas. So, do you see that in this field, with the use of AI, the use of new data, the management of big data, we can make the transition to the day after? And what is being done now, or what will happen in the medium term, fills you with confidence that we'll be able to give value to economies, society, and to citizenship as well, increasing their participation, maybe more transparency. Is that where we're headed at? Quo vadis? Where are you headed? Well, undoubtedly AI is the technology of the future, despite the fact that it hasn't evolved and been developed recently. The term AI, and I think you know these things better than I do, was first heard in the mid-1950s. But it took a great number of years until such time as it started its upward mobility. And this upward mobility was combined with the cloud boom that gave all the capabilities that were needed, the technological capabilities, I mean, required. Obviously, it can contribute with huge benefits and huge opportunities provided for the businesses and entrepreneurship. But what I would say that we find exciting is the contribution of AI and its social dimension. By that I mean how it can contribute in the improvement of the population's health, agriculture, and subjects such as that. So the field is indeed a glorious one, and it lies before us. So constantly AI will be on the rise, both in the private sector and the public one, because we shouldn't forget that we have automated most business procedures and processes, but they're still based and founded on the human factor. So they are prone to mistakes, they are affected by mistakes. So with AI, we can eradicate those mistakes and make the processes more efficient and effective. Studies show that with AI, businesses can increase their ROI and their profitability, and to be even more innovative than they used to be in the past through the use of artificial intelligence. We would be remiss if we left the public sector outside of our scope of thinking, because the entry and introduction of AI into the structures of the public sector can reshape public administration in a fundamental way, especially in countries as Greece, where we have chronic problems, pathogeneties, I would call them even, and AI can resolve them once and for all. Mr. Zervos, you mentioned the issue of the value that may be acquired by entrepreneurship in a country that is struggling in terms of innovation. Let me move on to Mr. Kassimiotis. These words, AI, big data, data mining, data processing, all these neologisms we use in a traditional economy that is based on tourism, real estate, some manufacturing businesses, and has a backbone of a small and medium-sized enterprise nature. Can they lift and shoulder this technological burden? Can they deal with this technological challenge in a sufficient way? And of course, there is the issue of resources. Is there the capacity? Or are we just talking just like that on thin air? Now, my answer will be two-pronged. I said earlier that we're already living in a time when economies are developing on data. And there are studies and surveys by the EU even that show that the economies that will prevail in the future and will increase their GDP will be those who will have attained to maximize the utilization of the data that is produced within the economy. So we start to see a trend of an increase or reduction of the GDP that is a function of our ability to process and utilize data. We can't say that we remove ourselves from this equation, regardless of which parts of the productive economy support our GDP. All areas, all sectors work in the exact same way. Even the sector of tourism, let's use this as an example, is a sector that has a huge interaction with the state. So even the state in its fundamentals need to have to share three key characteristics in order to be able to survive and increase the level of produced services. Which are those things? They need to be edge-centric, they need to be cloud-enabled. What Mr. Zervos says to be able to use new techniques to maximize the processing of all that fact, and to be data-driven, to take the data, store it, utilize it, produce understandable and reproducible content, and therefore create and transform data into an asset, either of the business or of the state. This is a global game. Greece cannot leave itself outside, and we've seen how happy we all were when we saw the state make things they wouldn't do in the past for things that touch our lives every day, and feel very proud about it. And this is something that can be seen. So in the global competitive community, I believe that both big companies that at the moment, truth be told, have a greater degree of adaptability to this data economy, and the smaller ones where a lot of work needs to be done, and the work that needs to be done by everyone, because a single company or a single structure cannot resolve the entire problem. It's an ecosystem within which the bigger companies that possibly already implement such techniques lead the way and create a platform very, very fast through which all companies, regardless of size, can walk at the same pace and stride. And this has nothing to do with market segmentation or verticalization. It needs rules of equity, of equal distribution of technology as a commodity, to allow everyone equal access to it, so as to allow everyone to adapt to it at the same pace. The issue with sustainability and ESG in general is not by accident that it is being discussed. We all have a right to a good climate. Climate change torments everyone, not just the poor or the rich. A similar example could be seen in the access of companies to all these new technologies that will be, at the end of the day, their raison d'etre. So do you believe that the institutional framework is sufficient to have this dissemination on all levels and strata of society and the economy, and to create the data gravity of the country and to maximize it? Now, regarding the institutional framework, I think that the minister spoke about it. Yes, but you're in the market and you know better, don't you? Yes, we do, and we primarily focus on technology and how we can utilize it, or to, propose additions where additions are needed. What is important, and I would like to highlight and increase and put on what was already said, is that what does the cloud give us that we didn't have in the past decade? It gives us scalability. We can move from very small infrastructures to big infrastructures, to rise, to drop in a very flexible and fast way. This is something we didn't have. Second, the data exists to a great extent within the companies, within the businesses, and without, in social networks, in social networking media. And AI is a challenge that can benefit everyone. The very tissue, the very structure of the Hellenic economy, small and medium enterprises. Now the key and the great gap is to build skills, skill building. They need to acquire human resources with skills that can support these initiatives and to allow them to innovate. Be that businesses that offer tourism services, be that businesses that offer other goods and commodities of everyday life. So this is the key point, the turning point. And all from those small and medium enterprises invest in HR and build skills in the years to come, they will undoubtedly be winners in business. Right, well, Mr. Zervos, do you think that there is sufficient human resources to support this transition? Because we are hearing an investment boom in data centers in Greece and so on and so forth. Can this be sufficiently supported? What will this bring to the country? This trend we hear about regarding investments in this sector. Well, you see, obviously, all investment is a good investment. It's welcome, because it will transform the country, potentially, into a digital transition hub or center. So, in that sense, any investment is welcome. That being said, investments bring this reskilling among the employees to make them capable to meet and cope with the new status quo, as required by each profession in this modern day and age. So surely digital transition, the technologies you mentioned, the cloud, AI, big data, all these things will give the chance, provide an opportunity to organizations, businesses, and the employees, respectively, to rise one or two rungs in the ladder they're on. It's equally important to say that these technologies, and the cloud in particular, made it possible for everyone, even the smaller businesses, to have access to the latest technological advances, which was unheard of and impossible in the past. Due to the acquisition cost and the operation cost, something like that was impossible in the past. So today, the opportunity is given to all businesses, regardless of size, and their employees alike, to utilize all the latest technological developments for their business and their organization to operate in a more efficient way, in a more effective way, and to provide services both to citizens and their customers. So in this map that you described, I want to raise two issues in closing the discussion. First of all, your businesses, how do they contribute into this new map that is being drawn in terms of investment or in terms of policy axes? And the second thing I'd like to hear your opinion on is whether there is a moral danger or a moral risk from all this management. A moral risk at a time when society is fragmented and quite possibly frightened to develop some antibodies or some phobias that will impede or slam the brakes on this transformation into a digital future. Well, being a businessman, I will answer the first part of your question first, because it has to do with the social contribution we need to think about as a priority. Quite clearly, there are professions that will be impacted more heavily. There are others that will quite simply improve themselves because they will adopt faster all these technologies. Quite clearly, we'll need to examine the institutional framework, because part of this framework exists, part of it needs to be built and is being built, and this is not just a Greek reality, it's a European reality. At the moment, in the EU, there are three big political umbrellas, let's call them, that are trying to describe what must be done, the moral code of the businesses, of the companies. I will talk about the Digital Market Act, the Digital Service Act, and the Data Sovereignty Act. All these three give the framework within which businesses and citizens need to move within. So as a company, well, we're a company that believes that the cloud needs to go to the data rather than the data go to the cloud, which is why we built a platform that allows from the edge, where the data is created, to the cloud that is offered for each type of data, for them to be positioned in an optimal way, to have options, choices. These choices may be in data centers collocated or in the public cloud. What we want is to be able to manage, utilize, and monitor the data throughout their life cycle. Well, let me start from the second part as well, so as to keep the ball rolling. In IBM, we call this trustworthy AI. It's very important. It's something that stems from the moral dimension of the issue, but definitely expands, extends. It needs to be worked legislative-wise, but also in the everyday practice of the people who are working on it. What does that mean in practical terms? It means that the practices of moral processing of data and drawing the value and surplus value needs to be incorporated in the process of utilization and modeling of data, fragmentation, creation of data-driven insights, and so on and so forth. So it is very important for this to be done with respect for the end user, and with their consent. And on behalf of the business that uses these data, to have those controls and checks in place that will safeguard that no tweaks will happen, no distortions will be experienced, and that it will not be demonized. We, as IBM, celebrated 80 years of presence in Greece. We are one of the oldest, perhaps the oldest IT-related company in Greece. Throughout these decades, we've been moving on two axes. One of them is to utilize new technologies and assist businesses to acquire know-how on technology and on the new initiatives that have been introduced now, which is data, AI, the cloud. And the second axis is that we place great emphasis, and we have been through time, in utilizing our scientists. And, well, Greece is a greenhouse of producing such scientists, and our universities, in their good and bad states, do produce excellence, HR. So we focus there. We transform IT scientists through the productive process by introducing them and including them in the most complicated and complex projects there are out there, and serving the most critical workloads we have in the country, be that banks or telecommunications or other areas and sectors. And Mr. Zervos, for the closing. Well, morality in science and technology is an issue that has been of concern for a number of years, and it affects advanced societies, socially and technologically, such as ours. It's ethics. So we need to follow the way of dealing it that has been followed until today in similar such issues, because what we need is a transparent regulatory framework one that will determine and define which sectors AI may be implemented on, who will have access to it, and all other related issues, because there are risks and dangers out there. There are risks that have to do with unemployment, risks that have to do with justice itself, risks that have to do with equity and equality of citizens. Obviously, the risks are out there. So, respectively, a regulatory framework, a legislative framework needs to be created, put in place, that will determine how we can utilize AI, with the goal being the future and the prosperity of humanity. Now, our company, Oracle, is not here for 85 years, but we have been in Greece for 35 years. And particularly these past few years, but throughout, Oracle has been investing in the human resources of Greece, rendering Oracle Greece, Oracle Hellas rather, a hub in Southern Europe and the Middle East. So we constantly invest in human resources. Now, regarding other investments like data centers, for instance, obviously, Oracle sees Greece as an inextricable part of the wider area of the region of Europe, as an integral part of the EU. And we have a development strategy of our data centers in Europe to be implemented in the forthcoming future. Already some data centers are almost ready to be made operational and to accompany and be added to the total of 49 data centers we will have in the world as of the next 6 months. So Greece is closely watched, both locally and from the HQ. So when the time comes, this country will too be the focus of a separate and distinct investment regarding data centers. Right, this brings us to the end of this session. I would like to thank very much Mr. Michalis Kassimiotis, Managing Director, Hewlett, Packard, Enterprise Hellas and Cyprus, Mr. Koulisiannis from IBM Greece and Data and Technology Transformation Leader, and Mr. Frank Zervos, Sales Consulting Director with Oracle Greece. And of course, our wish is to meet again under better conditions, in better terms, and with better news in the time to come. Thank you very much all, and passing on the torch to the next panel.